So we're excited to have Dr. Liz Herman with Censure and Dr. Maureen Hammer and Loren Lovins here with us today to talk about personal knowledge management. Always a hot topic for us. I know that our audience worldwide likes to hear more about different definitions of PKM, as we call it, and what does it mean for you, what does it mean for others. So we're just excited to have them host here today, and I'll turn it over to you, Liz.
Thanks, Eric. It's certainly our pleasure. So thank you to you and Brandon and the Knowledge Management Institute for this opportunity. We're very excited to talk about personal knowledge management today. And I would just like to, say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, maybe even good middle of the night, depending on where you're at in the time zone. I'm certainly happy that you're with us today. I do want to allow my colleagues to introduce themselves. Loren Lovins and Dr. Maureen Hammer are joining me today. We share a lot in common and have talked about this topic frequently. And so, Loren, if you'd like, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to our group.
Sure. My name is Loren Lovins, as they've said, and I've been in knowledge management for about 14 years, started back in 2007. It's always been in the contact center type industry, started in higher education. Then 2016, I went to Censure with Liz, and we actually connected a couple of years ago on a new contract opportunity for me that she came forward and asked me to help her out with, and that was a great experience. So just looking forward to talking with everyone and discussing personal knowledge management today and kind of showing kind of how I approach it. Thank you.
Thanks, Loren. And Maureen, Dr. Maureen Hammer.
Good morning. So I've been in knowledge management for about 25 years. And that's been in academia, state government, private industry, just a variety of areas. I'm super excited to be on this call with all of you and to talk about what personal knowledge management looks like for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Maureen. Thank you so much. My name's Liz Herman, and I didn't have to cajole too much, but I did ask Loren and Maureen to join me today for this presentation. It's much more fun to talk amongst friends and colleagues, and so I definitely thank them for their support today and their unique viewpoints, which is really what we wanted to share. But this is intended to be collaborative, so we want to hear from you about what works for you from a personal knowledge management perspective. I have done knowledge management in healthcare, education, agriculture, and business. And it's really, I've started telling people it's my love language because I love talking about knowledge management. I'm super passionate about it. And I'm always learning, and I will be the first to tell you that I don't think anybody on this panel professes to know everything there is about knowledge management. So we hope that, it's a learning opportunity for us today as well. So we want to talk today about, personal knowledge management, which obviously differs from organizational knowledge management, although we have organizational knowledge management experience. So Loren and I recently completed a big kind of digital transformation effort for the United States Department of Agriculture and revamped a lot of their knowledge bases into one portal, which is called Ask USDA. And so Loren and I went through that whole knowledge life cycle. I think the big takeaway from Ask USDA, and you'll probably hear about this a little bit later in my presentation, is I always think people get really excited about building things, right? It's excited to see new things come together. But then, the maintenance of that stuff falls off because that's not glamorous. That's not really the fun part. And you'll see how this kind of plays into our personal knowledge management as well, because it takes work, right? It takes work to maintain our knowledge and our document management systems and our repositories. And I think you'll see kind of when I talk about it and Loren talks about it and Maureen talks about it, how that plays into into personal knowledge management. And then of course, Maureen comes to us with significant knowledge and knowledge management experience from her time at the Department of Transportation. And Maureen, if you want to say a few things about that, I'd love for you to talk about that.
Sure. So The department was quite large. There were 10,000 employees when I started. It was set up more like a corporation than anything else. So that it was like there were 9 VDOTs and everybody did things their own way. And everybody repeated each other's lessons learned. And we had probably 2,000 plus project managers who were in varying stages of experience in their tenure with the organization, who could really benefit from learning what we called our primary project managers, who oversaw billion-dollar projects. So instituting a program there was interesting because I was dealing with an engineering group, and they considered knowledge management to be very soft. And it's nice to have, but what was the return on investment for really participating in that? And so I'm very proud we built a nationally recognized program and recognized by Harvard, Innovations in Government. And it serves as a model for departments of transportation across the country.
Great. Thank you, Maureen. And you know what, Loren, I should go back to you because Ask USDA certainly was definitely you were my partner in crime there. And so I'd like you to share your takeaway from that organizational perspective and Ask USDA.
Yeah, I think, one of the, as you had mentioned, we took basically, I think it was 6 different knowledge bases. And they were disparate amongst different areas underneath the department. So it was interesting because there was a lot of duplicative information, redundant information, and we had the challenge of taking thousands of articles and moving them into a single source of truth, the USDA. And I think the biggest challenge from my perspective was watching out for duplicating redundancy. Is that a thing? So we that was, I think that was the biggest challenge. And when you're working with a team of people too, then you have that additional layer of challenge to watch out for those redundancies. You don't want to water down search results, right? And you don't want to have people wondering, okay, well, these 2 articles are talking about the same subject matter, but one differs from the other. So which one is the correct one? So I guess the short story is, that was the first time I had ever done something at that, with that kind of combination at that kind of level. So it was very, very challenging, but it was also a lot of fun. So, for me, it was like getting paid to work a puzzle, right?
Right. I love that.
Yes. Yep. I think that's where our passion comes in for sure. So we just wanted to kind of share, we do have organizational experience, but we apply it to our personal lives as well. And what we want to do here today is share our personal knowledge management story, or PKM for personal knowledge management. When talking with each other, Loren and Maureen and I discovered that, how we manage our own personal knowledge, we each have a really unique approach on how we serve ourselves and how we manage our personal knowledge management. So we just thought it would be interesting to share our own preferences for how we manage our own knowledge and content, and they're all different, but they're valid, right? So they're different approaches that we want to share really around how we kind of manage our documentation, our content, but the goals are the same. In the sense of, outside of our work lives, in our personal lives, we have things to manage, or we implement our own system outside of the organizational system in order to make sense of things. So what we're going to show today may be similar to what you do. It may be totally different. It may seem really simple. It may seem complex, but it works for us. And I always think of, knowledge management. I think about the change management aspect of KM. And I think this is a great micro example of change management, because I think if you asked me to adopt Maureen's style or adapt to Loren's style, it would be hard for me to make that change. Just like if I asked Loren and Maureen, hey, I want you to do what I'm doing, it would be hard for them to be like, okay, I'm gonna lose or dismiss kind of what I've built to transition to this new system. So I think this is also a great micro example of change management. So for personal knowledge management, this is what I'm talking about. I'm using kind of the definition that's out there. It's a set of processes individually constructed, and it's meant to help us make sense of our world and to work more effectively. It's taking control of our professional development and staying connected, regardless of, your employment status or really kind of how you come to KM. And so this is really our story of how we make sense of our world. Regarding the network, I really like that this kind of construct about personal knowledge management is about how we stay connected. And I think this webinar today is another micro example of staying connected. So Loren, Maureen, and I stay connected through work and through our passion for knowledge management, but we're also connected to the Knowledge Management Institute because of our area of interest and because of all the great things they do to promote knowledge management across the world, including, webinars like this, certification, conferences, so many things that they offer from a KM perspective. And now we're all connected to you from a professional development perspective and a personal connection. So I just wanted to share that that's another micro example. So this is kind of about information management. So this is necessary for us to manage our own artifacts and to filter and connect content together to improve our own performance, whether it's our home performance or our work performance. And so what we're sharing today, we're kind of being vulnerable and opening ourselves up and sharing with you our own personal knowledge management system. So the rule is, of course, if you ask people to help you with a presentation and you want them to share your stuff, you need to go first. So I am going to go first, and I'm going to show you my model first. But I want you to think about something before we show our models. So we're going to show you management and storage. And again, how we it's our document management system, our knowledge repository. But I want you to think about people. So I want you to think about, Maureen and Loren and I, what you might make assumptions about us from maybe how we look, how we talk, what we show, and think to yourself if there are generational differences or preferences. And then think about the process. So is it simple? Is it complex? Is it self-improving? And then also think about content, like are there any kind of structures in place or taxonomies? And also, of course, we can't forget about the technology. Think about the tool selections. What are we working with? And then from a cultural perspective, we all are kind of influenced by the organizations in which we work and even the organization within our families. And so I just want you to think about that as you listen and look at our systems, because I do want to generate some good conversation. We'll definitely have time for questions and conversations before we end the session. So I'm really looking forward to your thoughts. And sometimes it helps to frame things. And of course, in knowledge management, a great way to frame things is to think about people, process, content, technology, and culture. So with that framework in mind, am going to show you how I use Google Drive as my personal knowledge management system option. So I'm going to share a different screen. Give me a second here to share and let me know if you can see that. Maureen, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. So this is my personal Google Drive, and I am sharing it with you today. I'm lifting the curtain and showing you how I manage knowledge. This is how I manage my knowledge, how I maintain my content, specifically for me, how I maintain my documentation. And I'm going to just walk you through some examples. I'm going to keep my eye on the time because I definitely want Maureen and Loren to have as much time as possible to share their systems. But this is kind of how I manage my life from a content perspective. So I use Google Drive. I have, several high-level folders here. And within those folders, this is my file management system, but in Google, you can kind of see how I structure things. So I'll just tell you, I won't go into this folder, but I'll tell you a funny little story about the fact that the first folder is bank, estate, and taxes. So a little bit morbid, but I'm at the age where I was like, okay, I need to get a will together and I need to name executors. And oh, by the way, if something happens, I need people to be able to find the information that they need. And so my brother, has if something should happen to me, he's given kind of the rights to look at my electronic files. And I thought, let me just make this easy for him. So as soon as he comes to my Google Drive, he can probably figure out if he needs to talk about my estate, that, it's kind of right here at the beginning. And then I really break things down by kind of two big things in my life, which are teaching, because I do teach on the side, project management, technical communication, in addition to my full-time work, and then professional development. I mean, this plays into my knowledge management passion. So I want to just kind of go through those as well. But I also want to show you something. One of the kind of detractors or detriments to any knowledge management system, any PKMS, I have this Outlook folder. Oh, that's helpful. There's nothing in it. So as part of my, cleaning, which I do try to do often in this drive, I need to decide what to do with this folder, because this is not helpful to have a folder called Outlook and then have a blank, have nothing in there. So, just like any kind of organizational knowledge management system, you have to curate, you have to refine, you have to purge. But I want to take you into my professional development folder. And so this is kind of where I keep things that I need often, right? Things that have to come that I need to find often. So like how many times, if you're doing presentations or if you're in an organization that does proposals or tries to get work, you get asked for bios. What's your biography? And I always think those are so painful to write. Every time someone says, okay, I need like a 1-paragraph bio for you, it should be easy, right? But sometimes I think that's painful. So I have a whole I have bios that I've written that I can repurpose. In the knowledge management vernacular, I'm a big repurposer. So if I have existing content that I can use and tweak to make correct for the current situation, I like to do that. And then I like to have my headshots available and my speaker photos available, because a lot of times people will ask you, if you're doing a webinar, just like Eric and Brandon did, Liz, send me your bio and then send me a headshot, just like Loren and Maureen had to send their headshots. So these are things that I go to often, and I just want to make sure that I know where they're at and they're ready for me. High performance coaching, this is something that I did in the past. I worked with a high performance coach, so I wanted to keep all of his information in one folder. And then obviously, guess what? I have a knowledge management folder, which is probably no surprise to people on the call. I have a program management professional folder, a PMP folder, because I am a certified project management professional. And so I need to keep things in that file related to my certification. And then presentations that I do try to kind of categorize the different presentations that I do. I have a whole list of resumes. I mean, I can't see you right now because I'm looking at my screen, but, raise your hand if you have more than one resume. I mean, I have resumes going back for the last 10 years. And I have resumes. I see a raised hand. Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. I see raised hands. That's awesome. I mean, I have I'll open that folder. I'm not trying to, hide, but I have a lot of resumes here. I have old resumes. I have, resumes with a lot of different titles. I have a lot of resumes in there because it's just, I need to know, sometimes I need to go back and look at old resumes. And then I have a folder for STC, which stands for Society for Technical Communication. And the reason why that's under professional development is that is one of my professional organizations, just like the Project Management Institute, my PMP folder that I'm very active in. Thank you, guys. I see that you raised your hand. And so, here are all the things that I need to kind of, again, have top of mind. I need to find easily. These are the things that I do continuously. So right now I'm a judge in the competition. I write book reviews for one of our journals. I just became a STC associate fellow last year. So there's kind of a whole process around that. So I have to keep that in mind. Elections and nominations. I'm part of a committee that helps STC decide on its election. I do a lot of articles, presentations, online courses. Again, that is also my passion. So you can see here that I kind of have listed them out. So I did an advanced project manager for the technical communicator course. Now, advanced PM for the TC, that makes sense to me, right? If Loren or Maureen looked at my file, they probably would be like, what is PM for the TC? And so this is one of those things where when we make our personal knowledge management systems, they make sense to us, right? When we're working organizationally, we have to make sure that our structure, our taxonomy, our titles, our tagging makes sense for the organization. But I can come into any of these and I can understand, okay, this was my feedback webinar. I do try to write a lot. So I have a few articles that I've written for STC. One of my proudest moments is that I got to publish a whole issue related to KM. So I have a KM issue folder here where I was tracking things. Maureen contributed to that issue, so I was super happy about that. So thank you, Maureen. What else did I want to show? Well, I want to kind of show you down here at the bottom, you can see that I have some extraneous files, right, that are not in file folders. So I have an old salary guide. I have a random STC resume floating around out here. Looks like I needed the STC logo at some point. I have this team judge, and then I have something that is from 2019. So upcoming events from 2019. So this is part of the curation process. Like I have to kind of go through this and make sure that I'm cleaning this out, that I'm purging things and deleting things. Because again, I think I've shared this at the beginning, but one of my pet peeves with any kind of knowledge management system, personal or otherwise, is you got to maintain it. You got to purge stuff. You got to archive it. You got to get rid of it. You got to delete it. And I do try to do that. And so at some point, I'm going to have to come back in here and look at all these little straggler files and figure out, okay, do I really need an upcoming events file from 2019? I'm going to say that I probably don't, right? I probably don't. And so that is something that's going to be deleted. And these other just kind of, again, I'm going to call them straggler files because they're not contained in a bucket in my kind of structure. I have to decide what I'm going to do with them or where they're going to go. So that's my professional development folder. And then if I go back to my drive, I think I wanted to show you my health folder too. So this is where I collect recipes that I never make, just so you know. So I save a lot of recipes. I don't make any of them. So I got a few in here. This is all about clean eating, which I do for like a day, and then I decide I need jelly beans. But you can see that this was a program that I was trying to kind of capture all the information from this program. So it's just out here. I mean, yes, it kind of goes sequentially by how they titled it, but it's really kind of random. So sometimes I do save things that I don't always use or need. And then teaching, I do teach. And so I have, again, my structure, my specific courses are here, how I develop the course and recording instructions, because this folder, that first one, the course development and recording instructions, of course, is because every time I would have to record a new course or develop a new course, I would think, where is that information? How do I record this? What do I do? And so finally, in any system, you have to figure out, like, I just have to save this for myself so I know where it's at. I can't keep going out and wasting time searching for this information that I need repeatedly. And then you'll see that I still have some extraneous things out here that I need to probably put into folders. So that's it. That's what I kind of want to share about my system. I'm going to stop and I will bring the presentation back up just for a hot second. But then I think, Maureen, you are going to share let me get to the next slide. you're going to share yours. I'll just add that, risks with Google, it does get disorganized quickly. I kind of showed you that I have some things floating around. Version control is an issue. Metadata, you can't really do a lot with metadata. Now, there are some apps that you can plug in and integrate to Google, but for my personal drive, I don't need that. If I was trying to use Google Drive as an organizational knowledge management system, then I would look at things like that. But for me, I think it's $1.99 US for me to pay for the storage on Google, and it works for me. And then I'll just add, speaking of networks, I don't know if Scott Brewster is on today, but I noticed that he had posted a comment in LinkedIn when Eric shared this webinar, and he talked about the second brain as kind of the new knowledge management system. And so that's the power of the network right there, because Scott introduced me to that via LinkedIn on posting a comment on the KMI post, and I have been off on a rabbit hole now thinking about my second brain. And so that's another micro example of the power of our KM network. Maureen.
Thanks, Liz. So mine is very simple. I actually created one for this demonstration just because I was not willing to share my actual. So I apologize for that. So it'll look kind of empty. So just as a background before I get into it, the reason that I use Excel goes back to when I used to promote continuity documents within the organization. So if somebody had to come in and figure out where you were, who your contacts were, how to get things done, that there was one document that they could come to. And so my practice has evolved over time.
Can you share your?
I'm trying.
Awesome.
Did I get it up? Okay. So I actually have multiple versions of this. So I have one that is really personal information. So where is all my retirement information, my health information, my bank statements? If something were to happen to me, could a family member come in and find all of those items? I have one for professional development, and that's the one that I've mocked up here. And I have one that I use at work to organize my information. The reason that I use Excel is because it allows me to filter, to find things rapidly, to keep it up to date easily. I'm very envious of Liz's file structure, because what usually happens is everything goes into the miscellaneous file for me, and I think I'm going to go back later and organize this, and it never actually happens. So I use this almost as a directory. So I'll have contacts in here. I'll have links to things that I back to. I have a category called management because, like Liz, I have taught and my PhD is in management. I'm very interested in this. Where can I find the articles? So you'll see here, I just have the folder name, but usually I have, what is the file name? Because sometimes I don't things consistently. Ideas, what are the things that I want to be able to explore and think about? So notes, for instance, might be I need to reach out to Liz on this, or I need to do this type of an action. Files will be things perhaps I have written or that other people have shared with me. This one tends to be more transient. Ooh, it's saying my network connection is unstable. Can y'all still hear me?
We sure can, Maureen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Just making sure. So mine is very not sophisticated because it works for me. I'm a list kind of person. So I like being able to filter on things if I have something that is due at a certain time, or if there's something that I've considered a high priority, or to be able to really hone in on whatever topic it is that I'm trying to look at. So I like Excel for that. Now, when you look at the metadata, yeah, I have the column names and I can filter and I can categorize things, but it's pretty rudimentary. Do well with versions, because once I consider something to be something that I no longer want, I'll take it off this list. That doesn't mean that I actually remove the file from my hard drive. So something is still sitting out there that maybe has been superseded by something else or is no longer relevant, but I haven't taken the time to go and clean it up. And so when Liz talks about the fact that you have to keep this up to date, because I was not good at doing that with my specific file, I use my Excel spreadsheets to help me keep up with that. So the benefit for me is that it allows me to remind myself of where something is so that I don't have to go searching for it. So it saves me some time. I'm able to use a comment tool that is readily available and is pretty standard. It's easy for me to keep, and I can archive it if I so want. And as I said, I use it for work, professional, and personal mechanisms. Much to show or to talk about as Liz did, but basically my idea of personal KM is to be able to have a directory where I can quickly get to something, because I'm not going to remember where I filed something 6 months ago, and I'm not good at keeping those personal files up to date. So this allows me to do it without having to do the extra organizational kinds of things you have to do if you are working strictly off of files. But that's what works for me. So mine was not super exciting, but it works. At this time, I am actually going to stop sharing and tell you that you're about to see an incredible system. I have super envy about what Loren does. And I would love to be able to do it myself. So
yeah, we saved Loren for last because I think Maureen and I are both greatly impressed with his system. So
yes.
But again,
I'm gonna try it one of these days.
I don't know. I tried it and I gave up because again, it's hard to change our own personal knowledge management styles, right? So right. Loren, he tried to get me to do it and tried to train me, and then it didn't look as nice or pretty as his. So Loren, I'm sure that we can't wait to see what you have for us today.
All right. So yeah, you all made it sound a lot more fancy than I think it actually is. And you know, I've been through, I don't know if you all can see my
yes.
my screen here or not.
Yeah, we can see it. And it's OneNote, right, Loren? OneNote is how you manage. Yep.
It's OneNote. That's exactly right. And now I have been through, you know, an evolution in my personal knowledge management routines, even before I even knew that that's what it was, right? So been through Excel, still use Excel, not for my personal knowledge management, but you know, there are files that can be integrated. So I've just kind of put together a demo because like Maureen, I wasn't brave enough to show my what I actually use. But this is a kind of a mock-up. So and it's structured the way that I structure my own. So you notice that there is there's sections and section groups. And so there's a high level, and then there's sub levels. So I've got my scratch pad, which is just general things that I might, you know, I just need to make a quick note, and I might need to move that into another section later, right? So I've got OneNote links here, just some examples of what you might have on your scratch pad. There are OneNote versions that are desktop and Windows 10. I use the desktop version, and we'll probably end up migrating eventually to the Windows 10. There is some more information out there on that on the Microsoft site. There's some ebooks on there as well. So this is just an example of a page that I have in my scratch pad specifically that I wanted to touch on because it might be helpful to you all. OneNote is available for free as a free download. So, and then I have an image for something I'm going to show you later that's pretty cool. I just captured this image off the internet earlier so that I could show something. But and then you've got nesting pages. So for example, I have my professional development tab and my work log, which I'm going to go into details because I think that that's what Liz and Maureen find impressive about my system, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in a moment. So there's, you got the ability to nest pages. So by that, I mean, you can have a main page and then you might have several pages underneath. And then you got this little arrow. And that's pretty easy to do. So you can just add a page and then add another page and then nest that underneath, and then it automatically gives you that arrow, right? So got color coding on your tabs, so it's easy to identify. You can change the color, things like that. So I'm going to talk now about the work log because I think that that's what, like I said, I think that's what most people find the most helpful. So I've got contract A and contract B, right? So I've got all my company stuff up here, the high level, and then I'm working on contract A today. So the way I would work this would be have separate tabs, and then we've got another set of nesting here. So I've got contract A information and meeting notes. So the work log. So every day, this is where it has to become a habit. So if I forget to do this in the morning, then I'm going to have to think back, and that sometimes becomes a little bit difficult with the various chaos that may become your day, right? So I try to, the very first thing before I even open my email is go ahead and make a copy for today. So for instance, we'll just go ahead and plug in. This is March 2021. And so then we've got the, oops, I made a page on accident. And then today is $317. So I've planned a daily report. I've got a meeting. I've got to review analytics and outline an improvement plan. So then I'm going to use tags. The tag that I use most is the task list. So that just gives me a box that I can check stuff off. And then I've got things that are on the radar that might change from day to day, but typically things stay on the radar for a long time for me. Let's see. And then, so say I just finished the daily report. So I'm going to check it off and I'm going to drag it down to completed today. And then all of a sudden I got busy with stuff and I didn't get anything else done that I planned today except for this meeting. We'll go ahead and do the meeting. So now I know on 317 I completed 2 things, and I would probably add things to completed today that, came up throughout the day that weren't exactly planned, but they took priority. So tomorrow, let's pretend it's tomorrow. So I come in for the day and I start my day. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this page and I'm going to paste it and I'm going to change the date to 318. And then because I didn't finish these things on 318, I'm going to go ahead and remove them. And then I'll go through my calendar, my emails, check my radar. Let's say I need to go ahead and start brainstorming options for chatbot today. So I'm going to move that up to plan for today. So you can see how this list would, if I don't make it a habit, then I'm going to be missing a day, which kind of defeats the purpose of a daily log. And that's kind of the day-to-day system. So if you just keep, running it. And another thing that I wanted to mention about the day log, just give me just a moment here, just so we can fill it out so you can kind of see how that is. If I finish something on a certain day that I might need to call attention to at the end of the month or reference at some point, because maybe Liz might call me up and say, what did we finish in April of 2020? Well, if you do this every day and you move the major events over to your month, and you can go back to April 2020 theoretically and see what all the major actions that were completed that month. That's pretty handy, right? So you can also, link to meeting notes, things like that. So if I wanted to make a link to the meeting notes, I can copy a link, and then I go back over here. Let's say that it was this peer discussion. And then I just paste that there. So then if I were to go back to the 17th, I'm like, oh, what was that? And click on it and go to those meeting notes.
So pretty.
Starting to wonder if I was talking to myself, Liz. Sorry.
No, I'm always fascinated because, again, I will share with everybody, I tried to set this up and it didn't look quite like Loren. So I gave up.
Yeah. And OneNote is a very, it's a robust program. It's not one of those things that I would, obviously use if I was putting together something for an organization, but the work log and keeping track of things that I need to know at a quick check. It's always, since I started using it, and I've left and come back a couple of times. So, that's something else is, it's an evolution, and I might change how I use it tomorrow. And that's part of the flexibility that it provides. Some things I wanted to touch on after the work log, and I'm keeping an eye on the time here because I want to make sure that there's time for conversation as well. But you can, there's various export options. You can export a page, section, or entire notebook. And that's as easy as going to File and Export. And then you select the option. So if you want to just do a page, section, or entire notebook, you select that there, and then you have multiple file formats. So if I need to send Liz, say, some meeting notes from one day, I could go in and just export that page to a PDF or a Word document. And then I could just email that to her, right? So that's pretty cool. And then so that covers that. Yes, I heard, Liz, were you wanting to ask a question or make a statement?
Well, Loren, did you in your opinion, I know you said you've left this and kind of come back to it at times. What for you are the risks or the weakness that you see in doing this?
Okay, so the risk is that if you don't keep it organized, it can get really hairy very quickly. And then if you change projects and you have the opportunity to start fresh, then you can start a whole new notebook, right?
Right.
But the other thing is not everyone uses it and is comfortable with it. So whenever you're working within a work group that already has adopted another method for that group's personal knowledge management, because I think that there's another layer that, may be something that's talked about at another time, but you've got, whenever you're working in a work group, it might be more convenient to adopt the common denominator, if you will, for what that group's using. And that's not usually OneNote. So I can say that there was recently, within the last couple of years, a point where I moved strictly to Outlook using the tasks because we could share the task list. So that was something I couldn't share my OneNote because of security restrictions. But I needed a way to be able to share the task list with the group that I was working with. Does that answer your question, Liz?
It does. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So yeah. And the good thing about OneNote is if you if you move from another method to OneNote and you need to reference the information that you might have had in other groups, you can always you can embed files. Of course, you can copy and paste, but there's also a lot of integration available with other things such as Outlook tasks. So just something to keep in mind. Some things I'll touch on real quick, and I'll just go through this list instead of demonstrating it, because I think we want to have at least 10 minutes for the group to talk through some things. So some other things that you might want to check out if you decide to try OneNote, or if you're already using OneNote and you're not using these features. I find these things very handy. When I copy from the web, it can automatically source a link. Of course, I talked about the tags. The tags you can customize. So you can go in and you can create new tags. You can rename tags. They have a set of defaults here. That's always quite handy, because you can use that to quickly identify areas that you might need to reorganize later. There's page templates. So you can create your own, or you can use the set of templates that are available by default. Page and section linking, I think I showed a little bit of that in the work log with the meeting notes. You can make image text searchable. So if you take a screen capture of someone's notes, say, for instance, if you took a screen capture of this right now and you pasted that into OneNote, you could actually search the text in the search feature, and it could find that image. You can also copy and paste the text from images. Got built-in screen capture, the record audio, which I don't use, but I may someday start using that. That's this feature here. When you record, evidently it synchronizes where you take notes with where in the recording that note was taken. So that could be very handy. There's drawing capability. You've got rule lines. If you use a tablet and you want to, you like handwriting, then that is an option. And then something else I find really handy is this quick access toolbar, which isn't restricted to OneNote, but it's where I use it the most. And so I'm going to stop blabbing now, and I'm going to turn this back over to you, Liz.
Awesome. Do you want to stop sharing?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to put the presentation back up because the next slide just said conversation. But Loren, I want to give you a chance to kind of look in the chat, because there's a lot of good comments in the chat. Yes. So I want to give you a minute to look through them. And let's talk about some comments in the chat. So I know, like for Google Drive, people were asking about backup. I do have a hard drive backup. Things sync automatically between my Google Drive and my hard drive. So if I update a file, that's kind of happening automatically. Someone asked a question about security, which I think for all of our systems is really great. And the question that I can answer about Google Drive is not yet. So do I worry about security? Yes, but I will really worry about security when something happens, right? Which is very reactive and not proactive. But I do thank you for the comment about security. But I do have different drives. So obviously my personal drive is, something I use for myself that I shared today. My work drive, I do have a work drive. And to the point that someone made, I think it was Belinda maybe, or Vanessa, Jennifer, sorry, it was Jennifer. Obviously I don't want to accidentally share a file and then have somebody be like, oh, wait, this is Liz. It says Liz's bank estate tax file. Let me see what's going on. So I am very careful about that, but that's a risk. It is a risk of using Google when you're sharing files. And so Scott Brewster is on. So I saw about your OneNote and what you said about saving your important physical documents and digital documents. Again, in the case that something happens to you, I get that. I think I talked about my backup. Maureen, people were talking about yours. Did you see the comments? Like simple works, right? I mean, yeah. It's how you manage your system. I think there were some other comments for you as well in there. Just trying to find them. Go ahead, Maureen.
No, I was going to say, I think there were a couple of suggestions. I've been noting those in my ideas tab. And and somebody else who said that they had done something similar that I haven't had a chance to take a look at, but appreciate the link.
Yeah. And Loren, some comments for you if you saw them. You know, someone was thinking, could they use OneNote as a reference guide?
You can. You could make a section for the reference guide. You could actually you can use multiple notebooks so that you can, and then you can export it to PDF or Word document. There's searchability. There is a built-in search that searches notebooks, sections, or pages. So absolutely, I think you could. But if you decided to use that as a reference guide for other people, then I would personally, I would recommend exporting that to a PDF or a Word document, just in case they don't use OneNote.
That's good. How long did it take you, Loren, to find your way in OneNote?
Like I said, I've left and come back a couple times. Each time it's a new iteration of how I use it. So years actually.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say it wasn't helpful the first time. And I'm always still to this day finding new features. So I still don't think I'm using it to its full potential.
Maureen, what about like if you're trying to tag things, or the question about the taxonomy?
Yeah, I saw
like
that.
What do you think about that? Just your personal opinion, your professional opinion, because you're a practicing knowledge manager.
So I think that you can start with some basic tags or metadata that make sense across the board, but I really think it's something that you're building. The problem is you want to make sure that you're not so specific in it that you have like one or two things tagged by something, but it doesn't really fit in with related items. And so it's really a personal thing. But from my perspective, you'll want to stay fairly high level, or you lose sight of things that really you want to combine together.
That's good. Thank you, Maureen.
Yeah.
I also see, and Loren and Maureen, please help me cover what else is in the chat as well. But I saw a question about, a folder structure. I mean, I try not to go deeper than 5 or 7 levels, because then it just, and yes, 3 is best, right? 3 to 5. Sometimes like in my Google folder, because I try to, organize some things by presentation, then I do go a little bit deeper. But you'll notice that all of us, Maureen, Loren, and I both started, very, very slim, kind of lean overall organizational structure. And I think that's best. You kind of have to think about how do those things fit into these kind of overarching buckets. And just like to add on behalf of Loren and Maureen and myself, you have our names and we're on LinkedIn. And if you want to connect with us, we, happy to continue conversations and grow our professional network as part of our own personal knowledge management system.
So we'll wrap it up for now, and want to thank everyone for joining us again today, and hope to do this again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good morning, evening, afternoon, middle of the night.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for sharing. Bye.